We're starting a new series, and the series is on the Ten Commandments and sin. Dave should be excited. We're going into the Old Testament. So it's the Ten Commandments. Let me just share why God chose a people. There were whole kinds of people on the earth. God just chose a people, the Israelites, to say, you are going to be my people, I'm going to be your God. Just like He chose us today as Christians. He chose us where He says, you're going to be my people and I'm going to be your God. And as a result of doing that, He gave them 10 commandments for direction. Because they didn't even know what sin was. Let me just share a verse here with Romans 7, verses 7 and 8. So we realize what this is all about. Romans 7, chapter 7 and 8. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? Certainly not. Indeed, I would not have known what sin was, except through the law. In other words, the Israelites didn't even know what sin was until they got the commandments and realized what they were supposed to be doing and not supposed to be doing. For I would not have known what coveting really was if the law had not said, do not covet. And the next verse. But sin, seizing the opportunity afforded by the commandment, produced in me every kind of covetous desire. For apart from the law, sin is dead. Okay, so I want you to think of this even. Before you became a Christian, I'm sure there were all kinds of sin in your life that you didn't even realize was sin. Right? Lord, when you were in prison before you knew the Lord, you did all kinds of things. You didn't know that it was wrong. They threw you in prison, you didn't think you even deserved to be in there, right?
Everybody else thought it was right.
Right. I mean, we would get drunk, we would get high, we would swear, we would lie, we would cheat. It was just part of our life. We didn't know that it was wrong. Just so the Israelites didn't know what it was wrong, so God had to give us commandments. I want you to think of it this way. Imagine if there were no laws of the land. That you could get in your automobile and go as fast as you wanted to. And there were no lanes, no turn signals on the vehicle, no speedometer. You could just go and everybody could go as fast as they wanted to. You could drive when you were drunk, you could drive when you were high. We realized that to be safe, we need to have laws. We don't like them all the time. We don't obey them all the time. Anybody speed this week?
Never.
Yeah. We don't obey them all the time, but we realize why they're there. And if a cop pulls you over and gives you a ticket, you're upset that you got the ticket, but you're just thankful they didn't catch you all the other times. Or you'd have your license taken away from you. So that's why that God gave us laws. So let's take a look at the very first one. The very first commandment that God gave us. Okay, so let's look at Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 through 3. God gave Moses 10 commandments. He took them up on Mount Sinai, spoke to him, and said, here's the 10 commandments. The first one, and God spoke all these words. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. Now, we've heard when the people that went to India, and we've heard Shresh share, and other people that have shared, that India says that they have like thousands and thousands of gods. Well, it was the same way then. They had thousands of gods. So God is saying, I'm your only God. Today, we have hundreds, probably thousands of gods. Anything you put ahead of God is your God. Is your God. If you put something ahead of even being here this morning, you made that your God. It could be sleep. It could be sleep. If you put something ahead of God, God says, you shall have no other gods before me. No other gods. I don't want you worshiping anything else. Money, your job, your family. I'm your God. Oh. So, let's look at Matthew chapter 22, verses 36 through 38, because Jesus came along and said, I am the fulfillment of the law. In other words, there's the 10 Commandments, but I am going to fulfill the 10 Commandments. So he says here now in Matthew 22, 36, there's a young man that came to Jesus and said, or actually the ruler, one of the leaders of the church, ever going to try to stump Jesus, and said, what's the greatest commandment, Jesus? What's the greatest one? So Jesus answered them. Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. That's the greatest commandment. But he says, if you do this one, you will automatically do all the other ones. You'll automatically do all the other ones. And I've taught before, we said the second commandment is like it to love your neighbor as yourself. But I want to look at the first one. Because he said, this is the most important one. Listen, please. Listen. Because it just convicted the heck out of me. It really convicted the heck out of me, and I'm hoping that it might convict you too. Let's look at Matthew chapter 22 now, verses 39 through 40. Jesus says this, after he shares these verses, 39 through 40. And the second's like it, love your neighbors yourself. The law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. All the rest of them. And the Pharisees were gathered together with Jesus, asked them, is this part of it? No. That's right. All the rest of the law hangs on whether you love Jesus with your whole heart, your whole soul, and your whole mind. Now, many of us love God with our mind. Okay? Many of us love God with our mind. You obey God because you know that that's what you're supposed to do. So I can look at some of you and say, wow, you're leading an awesome life. You would never cheat on your wife. You don't swear. You don't drink because you know that you're not supposed to do that. Your mind. Sometimes you do it with your soul. Where you're not sure if it's wrong, but your soul kind of tells you, don't do this. So you don't do it because you hear your soul saying that this isn't something you should do. So you love God with your mind and your soul. But you love God with your heart. With your heart. It's kind of like this. A lot of you have children, okay? You may have a son or a daughter that obeys you because the child knows that that's what he's supposed to do. So he listens to you almost all the time. He obeys you. But he doesn't do it out of love. He does it because he's supposed to. Big difference. Then you get another child that obeys you sometimes, and sometimes he or she doesn't, but they love you. And when they do something wrong, they come to you crying and saying, I'm sorry. Sorry, Dad, that I did that. And cuddles up in your arms. Which one would you rather have? Which one would you rather have? The son or daughter that does everything you ever say, but doesn't show the love? Or the child that maybe disobeys once in a while, but it's just so obvious to you that they love you? That's what God wants. He doesn't want you to obey him just because it's the law. He wants you to do it because you love him. How do you do that? How do you do that? How do you love God? How do you love God? I want you to think of someone that you love. It could be a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a child, spouse. These are some of the things you do. If you really love them, if you really, really love them, you put them ahead of yourself. You put them ahead of yourself. You make special time for them. You communicate with them. You share your deepest feelings with them. And when they leave, for some reason, and write letters to them, you read them and you reread them over and over because you love that person. I would ask you, do you love God? God? Yes, I love God. Then the question I would have for you are these. Do you put God ahead of your needs? Is He your only God? Or do you have a whole bunch of other gods that you put ahead of Him? Do you make special time for God? Do you communicate with God? Do you share your deepest feelings with God? Do you read His letters and reread His letters? Because if you don't do that, then you just love God with your mind, not with your heart. And God is saying, the greatest thing you could ever do for me is to love me with your heart. And you learn to do that, you will do everything else right too. But you have to love me with your heart. I was convicted on this one, people. I was totally convicted on this one. I mean, I think of myself as loving God. And then when I was, I'll be honest, when I first started the Ten Commandments, I was like, wish I had told Dave I was going to do the Ten Commandments. This is going to be boring. No, all them. Then the first one just got like, cut me like a knife. Cut me like a knife. It's like, do you love God? I think that I love God because I'm leading the church. I'm preparing Bible messages. I talk to God when I'm laying in bed. But do I love Him? Look at Matthew chapter 6, verse 21. This is what Jesus says. Matthew 6:21. This is Jesus Himself talking. Now remember, Jesus is God, okay? Are we at 6:21, Frank? Okay, here we go. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Where your treasure is, what you are all spending your time on, that's really where your heart is. That's really where your heart is. Okay? Now, I love this one. I love this one, Matthew 12:34. This is the one that convicted the heck out of me, okay? Matthew 12:34. I hope it maybe it convicts you. Matthew 12:34. How many of you are on Facebook? Or some sort of media? I love Facebook. I love Facebook. Prior to Facebook, I never knew what you people were doing. Now I know what you eat. And where you eat. And what your food looks like. I know everything about you. Now, looking at this, there was some, when Jesus was teaching people, some of the church leaders came to him and he said, you brood of vipers. Just keep it up there. How can you who are evil say anything good? Now look at this last verse. For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Out of the overflow of your heart, your mouth speaks. So what's really in your heart is what you say. Just like it says, the eyes are the mirror to your soul, your mouth is the mirror to your heart. What your mouth says is really what's in your heart. So if you curse, that's really what's in your heart. If you lie, cheat, that's really what's in your heart. So as I looked at Facebook, for many of you, Now, I know some of you are going to sit there and say, Jim, you can't judge on this. Yes, I can. Yes, I can and will. And will, because we're to judge one another as Christians. Not those that are not Christians, but those that are. And when I see on Facebook, most people that post this, family, work, business, politics, videos, animals, and as I've done, eating, and where you eat, and all those other things. And that's what you're posting over and over and over. That's where your heart is. That's where your heart is. And every once in a while, there's someone in collision that just pours their heart out to God. It's Bible verses. It's what they got out of the Bible verses. And it's their love for God. It's kind of like, is that what's there? If it's just one time, when it's constant, I have to look and say, that's where the heart is. That's where your heart is. That's where your heart is. Where is your heart? Where is your heart? Do you ever talk about God? Do you ever talk about God? One of the ways you know where your heart is if you're at a restaurant somewhere and you hear someone at another table talking about the Bible or about God or about Jesus, and your ears perk up and you want to go there and be a part of that conversation, that's where your heart is. That's where your heart is. Where is your heart? Where is your heart? I'm going to challenge on you. This is my challenge to me. I want to challenge you that you would love God with your heart. That you would spend time with Him. That you would put Him ahead of your needs. That you'd make special time for God. That you'd communicate with God. That you'd share your deepest feelings with God. That you would read and reread the letters that He wrote to you. So if you're sitting there saying, how can I get closer to God? How can I make my faith come alive? Do this. Learn to do this. You may not love God with your heart yet, but learn to love God with your heart, and your life will drastically change. It will drastically change. And you will automatically obey all those other commandments, and sin will slowly ooze out of your life. It takes a little bit of effort. Not much, just a little bit. Now, I told myself, I pray to God when I'm laying in my bed, but I don't make that special time for God. I'm laying in bed and go, well, I can't sleep right now anyway, so I'll just might as well talk to you, God. TV's off now, so I might as well talk to you. It's not that special time. It's not that time where I say, God, this time's for you. This time's for you. And I get down on my knees in submission to that God to say, I want to talk to you, God. I want to share my deepest feelings with you. And I want to read your letter to me to see what you have to say. So here's my challenge to you this morning. I'm going to close with this. That this week, there's 5 chapters in 1 John. 1 John is my favorite book. There's 5 chapters in 1 John. Now, if you could read 1 chapter a day, and I know some of you go, oh, a whole chapter? Those are long chapters, Jim. Didn't you see that? Where's your heart? Where's your heart? It's kind of like asking your child, can you help me to do dishes? Oh, look at all the dishes there are, Mom. Oh, all right. Or the child that sees you washing dishes and comes up and, can I help you, Mom? Big difference. Big difference. Big difference. Question. Yeah. Homie, you're looking at somebody that's, you know what, I don't ride a bike, I prepare messages. Same thing. I'm doing this is my job. Yeah. Where's God in mine? I'm speaking to the choir. This message is for me. You can hear it if you want to too, but this is for me. All right? I don't do that. I don't do that. But I'm gonna read one chapter from 1 John, and here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna read it, then I'm gonna say, God, what is in here for me? Then I'm gonna get down on my knees for 5 minutes and talk to him. 5 minutes is a long time. You ever talk to God for 5 minutes? It's hard enough talking to my wife for 5 minutes. That's a long time. But you know what? I can watch American Idol for 2 hours and not blink my eye. And then Voice comes on Monday, and I watch that for the whole 2 hours. Then it comes on Tuesday, and I watch that. Then American Idol comes on Thursday, and I watch that. I make it a priority. I don't miss it. Where's my God? Who's my God? Who is my? I can do that for 2 hours and not even bad. And when I do it, if my wife talks to me, it's got, wait. Middle song's over. Middle song's over. So, what do you want? All right, what do you want? Never mind. It's my God. It's my God. And so when I said, I'm even doing this, okay? I'm looking at when I said 1 John, I was like, geez, that's a long chapter. Oh, what I get myself into. Yeah, I'm trying to really good. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to read one chapter a day, and I'm going to spend 5 minutes on my knees with God because I want to love God with all my heart. I want to learn how to. I want to learn how to. Do you? Now, I'm going to lay this challenge on you. And this is what I know. Maybe 25% of you are sitting there right now saying to yourself, I'm going to do it too, Joe. And unfortunately, about 75-80% of you are just sitting there just kind of like, I'm watching American Idol. I'm watching Voice. I don't have time for that. You're not even thinking. What would God say to you? Not what Jim would say to you. What would God say to you? And you don't think he can't read your heart? He knows my heart. I can't fool God. I can fool you people. I know I can. I can fool you a lot of times. I can't fool God. I cannot fool God. I want to fall in love with God. You hear me? I want to fall in love with God. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask the worship team to come up here. As they come up here, if you can turn this on, I'll listen to their close. And if I can just turn the lights down. I'm going to sing a song. But I want you to know, usually when I sing a song, I hear snickering and laughing because I know I don't have a good voice. And I do it for crazy reasons. But this morning I want to do it for a different reason, okay? I want to do it for a different reason. I know it's going to be a stretch for you. But I want you to close your eyes and I want you to imagine that God were singing this song to you. So I want you to listen to the words. And I hope that you can hear my passion also. I'm going to sing a song this morning called Say Something. Change the words. I want you to hear, I want you to imagine that this were God singing this song to you. Especially those of you that were sitting there with no intention of taking the challenge. Listen to the words of the song. And as soon as I'm done, hope this doesn't echo. But as soon as I'm done, the worship team is going to go to worship. Close your eyes. Listen to the words. Say something, I'm giving up on you. I'll be the one if you want me to. Anything I would have given you. Just say something, I'm giving up on you. And I never heard from you today. Don't you have anything to say? You seem so far away. And I never see you on your knees, even though I hear all your pleas. Won't you spend time with me, please? Just say something, I'm giving up on you. And I'm sorry, but I never hear you pray. It's like you don't have anything to say. So say something, just say something, I'm giving up on you. And I just want you to swallow your pride. You're the one that I love, but I'm saying goodbye. So say something, I'm giving up on you, and I'm sorry that I couldn't get to you, and anything I would have given you. Just say something, please say something, I'm giving up on you. And now I'm saying goodbye. I've given up on you. Just say something.
Amen.